Wheels down, Bogota, Colombia's colorful, chaotic capital. The city is perched nearly 9,000 feet above sea level, with views that will literally take your breath away. Oh, thank you. Gryffindor! When you tell people you're traveling to Colombia, everybody asks the same question. Is it safe? And hey, fair enough. After all, for decades, this country was caught in the crosshairs between right-wing paramilitary groups, left-wing guerrillas, and some seriously well-armed drug cartels. But then, things got better. In 2016, an historic agreement between the government and insurgent rebels led to a ceasefire and a Nobel Peace Prize. And hey, kidnappings are down by 92%, so, you know, that's good. The country has quickly become a hotspot for adventure travelers, and I'm one of them, here to begin my quest for the truth behind the legendary City of Gold. Okay, so to understand the myth of El Dorado, we have got to talk about the founder of Bogota, Spanish conquistador Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada, whose statue is right behind me. Right, about that. Okay, so we happen to have touched down at a slightly, what's the word, dynamic time. A few weeks ago, demonstrations erupted across Colombia. These protests were originally about taxes, but they have taken on a life of their own. It's like Occupy Wall Street. People are rising up against corruption, calling for peace, and generally fighting economic disparity here in Colombia. Many of the injustices that Colombians are fighting today started with the Spanish, which is why protesters tore down that statue of De Quesada. And to see the bigger picture, we've got to turn back the clock. Christopher Columbus. You remember him. After bumping into the Caribbean while searching for China, he returned to Spain with reports of a new world, which ushered in the era of exploration, and more accurately, exploitation. Meet the conquistadors. Hernán Cortés. He arrives in Mexico in 1519, and through some very careful diplomacy, lays waste to the Aztec Empire. In 1526, this jackwad, Francisco Pizarro, decimates the Inca Empire in Peru. Then there's De Soto, who went looking for a route to China in the southern United States, go figure, and Ponce de Leon, who thought the Fountain of Youth was in Florida. All right, maybe he was only half wrong. And those are just a few of the Spaniards. Portuguese conquistadors, called bandeirantes, snatch up Brazil. And Old World invaders fan out across the continent like a virus, all in the name of their kings. Oh, and for God. They're also doing this for God. In the end, the conquistadors kill an estimated 8 million, more than 80% of the indigenous population. And fueling their rampage are the vast quantities of gold and silver they discover. They melt it down to mint coins and decorate churches, and ship more than 180 tons of gold back to Spain. In today's prices, that's worth about $450 billion. Which brings us back to our man in Bogota. De Quesada wanted in on the action, so in 1536 he mounted an expedition to Colombia. What he saw inspired a legend that would sow destruction and change the course of history. That somewhere there was a secret city entirely made of gold. El Dorado. This is the closest thing to El Dorado contained within 4 walls, the Museum of Gold in Bogota. Home to 55,000 glittering artifacts, the treasures the Spanish never found. And the crown jewel of the collection is a masterpiece of ancient metalwork, the Golden Raft. It depicts a mysterious ceremony that may be the key to unlocking the truth about El Dorado. To learn more, I need to meet the people who made it, the Muisca. I drive 50 miles from Bogota into the foothills of the Andes and a place called Sesquile. This area is sacred to the Muisca people, so I've recruited an old friend who spent years earning the trust of their tribal leaders. Ash!
Josh.
Oh, my man, how are you?
Good to see you. You good?
I'm good. How you doing?
Great, thank you.
Great to see you. What the hell is a Scotsman doing in the middle of Colombia?
Just like you, searching for El Dorado, Josh. Really?
Last time I saw explorer and author Ashley Cowie, we were searching for gold in his native Scotland. Okay, so, El Dorado.
You want to see it?
Do I want to see El Dorado?
See El Dorado.
Yes, you know where it is?
I can take you to show you El Dorado, but we're going to introduce you to some people first.
Okay, if it's this easy, sure, come on. Let's go, lead on.
Go.
We're on foot, yeah?
We're up here, Josh.
Oh boy, everything in Colombia is hills. After trudging up a steep jungle path, we emerge into another world. Wow, look at this place. Amazing. This is astounding. I feel like we've traveled back in time here.
We truly have traveled back in time.
Is all of this Muisca?
This is a Muisca community, Josh. They're called the Sesquile community.
The basic religious beliefs of these people are what?
The Muiscas believed that a creator entity known as Chimney Gaga created first the sun and then the moon, and they were married. Chimney Gaga can't be worshipped directly. He was too holy. So the Muisca people worshipped him through the sun and the moon.
I've seen a lot of gold. So this would have been offered up to these gods?
The Museum of Gold in Bogota has 55,000 pieces. They reckon that represents about 5% of what the Muiscas gave to their gods.
So where are we going?
Yeah, we're going to the top part of this hill. We're going to the Temple of the Sun, which is like the last place we have to go to get permission to enter the most sacred landscape in Colombia. If you think about it, it's like walking through the doorway to the El Dorado myth.
Let's open the door, come on. At the summit of the hill, we find a large ceremonial structure and a friend of Ashley's.
This is Candil. He's the leader of the community here.
Mucho gusto.
Welcome to the Temple of the Sun. Please, come inside.
Gracias, Candil.
But the door to El Dorado doesn't just swing open. To gain access, I need to be accepted by the community.
What he's going to do is a clearing ceremony, if you like.
To ask the gods for permission, we're going to share a healing medicine.
He's going to give us tobacco, which is going to clear the way for us to allow the spirit of the sun god to come into us.
Soaked in a dizzying haze of smoke, the shaman blows finely ground snuff called rapé up our noses using a traditional bone pipe or tepi. The snuff is meant to induce a relaxed state for the next step of the purification trial. A cleansing offering.
These pieces of cotton are from the youngest leader of the community. The left represents the negative and the right is the positive. He's telling us to concentrate all of the negative energies we've ever had into this piece of cotton.
People are always telling me to stop balling up my negative energy, but in this case, it's all about letting it go.
And now we're going to place these in the fire. So we're asking for the good, positive energies to be fertilized into our life and for the old negative energies to be burned away.
One final test remains. A fermented corn drink called chicha is passed around. Made by chewing and spitting out corn kernels, chicha is a sacred and boozy backwash.
There you go. This is maize and Muisca saliva, Josh. Yes. It's fermented for a long time, so it's really strong. It's going to hit you where it counts.
To outsiders like me, chicha is challenging, but it's also an honor. And in the smoke, the centuries seem to waft away to a time before conquest, when the Muisca were the guardians of this sacred landscape.
permission is granted.
This is absolutely breathtaking.
There's no other word for it, Josh. And without this lake, there would be no El Dorado legend.
Muisca leader Carlos Candil and explorer Ashley Cowie explain that the El Dorado legend started with a ritual that took place in Lake Guatavita.
The golden raft in the museum in Bogota depicts an actual golden raft that was used here at Guatavita, Josh. That golden man standing on the raft with all of his attendants around him, that was the coronation ritual to install the ruler of the Muisca land.
To the Muisca, Lake Guatavita was their holiest site, where thousands would gather to witness the ascension of their ruler, known as the Zipa.
When the Zipa came here to become king, they would cover him in gold.
This plant here, when you mush it up, it becomes like a glue. That was put all over the man's body. Then he was covered with golden powder. The raft is loaded with gold figurines. And it's pushed out into the middle of the lake. And when it gets there, when the sun is shining on that king-to-be, he dives off into the lake. At that point, he is the golden man. El Hombre Dorado.
So, El Hombre Dorado, or El Dorado. El Dorado originally is a man, is a king, a leader. So how do we go from a man, El Hombre Dorado, to El Dorado, a city of gold? It seems like a huge leap.
It's like a game of telephone, Josh. The first conquistadors come here and find bits of gold, and they know that there's gold in these landscapes.
Right.
They hear about a golden man. Then it becomes a golden village, and there actually is records of people looking for golden villages.
Right.
Then it becomes the golden city.
And an early call in the game of telephone that turned a golden man into a golden city was placed by our toppled conquistador back in Bogota, Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada. In 1536, he leads 900 men into the Colombian highlands, where many fall victim to disease and starvation. Of the original party, only 170 make it out of the jungle. Clearly a glutton for punishment, in 1569, he tries again, with similar dire results. But the survivors of these ill-fated expeditions return with stories of a treasure trove of offerings lost in the depths. Imagine hearing stories of people covering themselves in gold, right? I mean, you would think, oh, they must have so much wealth. They must be so dripping in gold that they can afford to bathe in it almost.
Yeah.
Their imaginations must have gone wild.
Yeah.
Gold fever erupts. The scene depicted on that ceremonial raft launches an armada, and waves of conquistadors descend on Lake Guatavita to make their fortune. So hundreds of years ago, how would they have tried to get this gold out of the lake?
The first attempt was made in 1545 with wooden buckets.
Wooden buckets,
That's
okay.
how desperate they were. They got more ambitious and they did this here. They cut this ravine into the side of the...
Oh, here, where it's cut out.
Yeah, this is a draining hole, Josh, where they tried to drain the water out. It was a disaster.
In 1580, the Spanish drained the lake by 60 feet, but only recover $500,000 worth of gold. But they abandoned the project when a ravine collapses, killing hundreds of workers.
In the late 1800s, they pumped water out from the center of the lake and they got it down to about 4 feet high. But of course, the sun was coming through the water and it baked the silt into a cement, so they couldn't get through the cement to get to the gold.
It does seem like every effort to recover gold here has been kind of cursed.
Without doubt.
Disastrous attempts to salvage gold from Lake Guatavita didn't stop until the Colombian government declared it a cultural heritage site in 1965. All of these attempts to drain the lake, to damage this place, to take this gold, how has that affected the Muisca?
Our community was destroyed by the conquistadors. We lost our homes and our sacred places. We could not practice our religion and forgot many of the stories of our grandparents.
First wave was the physical trauma, having lost over 1 million people. It was horrendous. Sisters, brothers gone, traditions, songs, music, crafts, wiped out.
Yeah.
But then came a spiritual catastrophe. They had no connection with divinity. They had no way to listen to the goddess and to the gods.
Now, Do you think, though, there is more gold out there? Maybe not a gilded city, but do you think there is still lost gold, that elusive thing the Spanish were after?
There's so much more to learn about El Dorado, Josh. You've seen where the golden raft ceremony took place.
Yes.
But what you really need to see is where that little golden raft was discovered.
It wasn't discovered around Lake Guatavita.
It was found about 100 miles from here, Josh.
Really? Thank you so much for taking us here, for allowing us to come here to see this place. It's really special.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. From Lake Guatavita, I journey 100 miles south to the town of Pasca. The location of the cave of the Golden Raft is a closely guarded secret. To discover what other treasures may be hiding inside, I'm going to need a guide. That's where archaeologist and expert in Muisca art, Dr. Natalia Lozada Mendieta comes in. Natalia?
Yes.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Josh.
Jump in.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Okay, where are we going? That's the big question.
Further into the mountains.
Further into the mountains?
Yes.
Oh boy, okay.
Yeah,
And
you're going to see where the Muisca raft was found.
I can't wait, this is amazing. How are the roads? Perfect?
Yes.
I've only just met you, but I sense that you're lying to me.